Here we are at Marengo. The story so far. First we fought the Battle of Montebello, which impacted this, and Latrin's division suffered some heavy losses there. The French came into this battle in weaker condition than they did historically. The Austrians probably came in a little stronger than they did historically. Well, they did. Early morning, the initial attack by the Austrians caught the French here at Piedrabuono and really kind of hammered them. Victor pulled out from Marengo and fled all the way back. And Lan had some wanderings up here and eventually decided to move up here and retake Castel Ceriolo. So right now, and also Victor caught some Austrians, O'Reilly's division, hanging out here where it didn't belong, and now they're pursuing it back as far as here. Right now the French, de Saxe has come in. He's awaiting, he's resting a little bit before he takes up his orders. He's got a long delay. But the disorganized and fragmented Austrian command structure means that Ott's left wing, which is sort of the only corps-like function that the Austrians have, is moving up to attack Lan. But the rest of Milas's army is really a beast to try to maneuver and get where he wants it. And that's part of the problem why O'Reilly was caught out front, along with so many little commands that I'm likely to give them shitty orders. I've made some rules errors, there's no question about that. This system is a high burden compared to the older version, and certainly compared to things like VLE. But I think it's giving the most accurate Napoleonic view that I've seen yet. And that includes things like Labatt, which is the big pity why this doesn't get, hasn't gotten more games released in it. It's basically a dead system for right now, from what I understand. There were some discussions about a decade ago or so that, hey, the designers are trying to, shop it somewhere else and get it working, because Dean Essick, who was the original designer versions 1 and 2, apparently kind of wrote it off and abandoned it. And probably due to a combination of factors, one of which is lackluster sale for Talavera, which was the only game released under version 3, and another is that the system has become very, very different from what the original view was. And that's where it feels more Napoleonic, but it also definitely that extra burden that's been added on. Maybe, hey, I don't know, this is really not, at least for somebody like me, terribly playable anymore. Each combat is a pain in the ass. There's just so many things to remember. Anyway, that's catching us up. I'm hoping we can finish this on this video. I mean, I can ensure that we will, but you shouldn't be going into too much detail. It's it's a long day in the summer, and let's get moving after I'm done dancing and recover from that. Okay, before I get too deep into this and have to start getting some fighting done, well, it's early Sunday morning. Basically, I blew all of Saturday away, as usual. Things opened up with a real loose cannon. In this case, a random event that caused a gun loss here and the unit to become disordered just as it got its orders, which makes sense because the cannons weren't going anywhere before, but it could have happened anyhow. Could have been worse. If it was an unlimbered gun, it would have a Kaizen explosion, and That basically is the equivalent to fire in the hex equal to the gun's canister capabilities, which could do a lot of hurt. Milos, now again, this finally started moving and is kind of a threat because it's going to be running past Lon's force. Lon was not expecting this and is now seeing someone's heading his way from two directions. That's going to work out really, really well for the Austrians, I think. Milos got his orders immediately accepted by Haddock here, and he's just kind of pulled back. I think I've got a rundown, and I don't know what the hell this is, fucking cav. I thought it was infantry for some reason. And I also thought these guys were heading down here, not all the way over there. I've got a lot of cav protecting stuff, which is not all that helpful, and a lot of gaps in my line. But things might go very, very well for me up there. O'Reilly is going to have to do another emergency withdrawal, I think. Either that or just die. He's probably in pretty bad shape either way. Well, there's no cannons, so I'll just be straggling away. I don't know. Could help fill in the line here or something. Cav facing the wrong way, but they got a roll, made the reaction charge, and basically killed O'Reilly, destroyed his unit. He's pretty much out of it. He's down to a C-size unit now. He could get back up to a B if he gets straggler recoveries. But again, a really, really bloody system comparatively. And that is right. That's the one thing I really want to focus on, is that, like, this idea of units standing there plinking each other for long periods of time really never felt Napoleonic enough. But the cost. I've done, a piece and had to really work at it. A lot of die rolls, a lot of attacks, a lot of butchering, and now comes the main attack of the turn, which is going to be Ott's command, which is in range to smash into Lon, and we'll see how that works out. Really don't want to smash into them in column. March column is likely to make me run and fail my attacks. I got spared some expected pain with the approach here. I didn't have quite enough movement points to hit anywhere. The one unit, the lead unit that did, was like a demorale small unit, and I'm like, whoa, that's just going to get fried. And I also have an advantage. I have an artillery advantage on this. Maybe I don't want to engage in fire in close combat. Maybe I want to get those guns up there and just start pounding the French. They don't have anything except some skirmishers, so they're going to have to make the assaults, which puts the burden in another place. And Lon's in danger. He's in danger of being surrounded. Not right away, but it's going to show pretty soon. One thing I wanted to note, and I'm not sure, and I may have mentioned this before, I don't remember, but like the morale chart has one modifier basically, except for straggler recovery. And that one modifier is stacked with the commander. It doesn't worry about the wrecked status of the units. That is not the way the old system worked. The old system, you were in trouble if your command was wrecked. And it came to the point where you just couldn't get them, they got hit and they got smashed. You couldn't get them started again. Attacks would fail. Defenses would fail because the units were in such shitty shape that they would lose morale immediately. They would have trouble recovering their morale, etc. The fact that nothing like that, there's basically wrecked status. It doesn't even fit into the morale checks, which feels really, really weird, right? But it does fit into the casualty checks, I think. That doesn't fit into artillery, so it's not going to cause additional morale losses there, which it would in the old system. But over here, rec doesn't fit into this. It fits into whether or not you win the battle, i.e. your check to stand fails. And again, that'll be the case here as well, I assume. I'm not seeing it. It's got to be there, yeah. There's just sort of a... And by the way, I think all these modifiers are the same as these. No. No, they're not. Like defending in fortified terrain, it's stuff that a charge can't happen in. So, but yeah, when you hit a close combat, which is sort of the normal fire and melees from the old system, rect status does play into whether or not you win the battle, which will impact, you know, I'm willing to accept that you wouldn't want to multiply that effect by putting it on the loss tables. Not affecting artillery plinking or artillery fire, that means units that are not in great condition are liable to stand as well as anything else to sustained artillery bombardments. And again, I just don't know if that fits. So I don't know. Anyway, I don't have the energy to do another half turn right now. It really, you know, this tiny little battle is absorbing so much more than the old system did. It is just such a more burdensome design when you actually come to fighting. The periods where there's no fighting aren't an issue. And now I'm trying to remember if Labatt, something in that seems to, I don't know. I don't want to say something stupid, but I'm like, geez, was that actually a fire game? Did you have fire combat, or did you just have, yeah. My memory is so low on it because I played one. I had to answer that question, and now I see the answer and why I didn't have a real good grasp on it. It's somewhere in between. It's got fire combat, but it's an odds table. That's definitely weird. Anyway, I mean, it's an ancient system, you know. It stretches back to the 70s, so that's one of the reasons, like, it kind of, I think, I wanted this with the other Labatt. My games are not happy there. The stupid old Avalon Hill boxes are collapsed over many moves. They don't hold up well. I guess if you store them on their sides, they're in better shape, but that's not how they were even stored in the store. All right, that's it for tonight. I couldn't sleep, so, I mean, I had a few hours earlier. This is troubling because I got an interview on Monday. I fucked up the Sing one by thinking that it was Pacific time when they gave me an Eastern time period appointment on it. I'm used to my Outlook email keeping track of stuff for me. And anyway, French not able to push too hard here, and there's not a lot of, you know, I mean, I'm running at the edge of my speed, so I can't even pick on these disordered units, although I am attacking some artillery that got exposed because of a unit routing under skirmisher fire, actually. It was only shaken before, gets disorganized by the skirmisher fire, but it also got wrecked, so that routed it, and boom, it's gone. Nice little opportunity there. But these guys, I'm lining up, and I unlimbered some guns, because I can do battery, I can do the grand battery attacks, which means that I have a firepower advantage that's fairly significant. I don't have to fire each gun individually. I can combine them all and launch one pretty big attack against these guns and then move in. But here, Lon feels like he has to charge forward break Ott's attack at this point. Now, I've got less units, but better morale maybe, and we'll see. I don't think this is going to go well for me because Watrin's command is screwed up. I'm really annoyed by this having to write orders for the army. Napoleon wrote orders to move it up to here. Just, it's a pain in the ass to have to keep track of that kind of thing, especially since if the army gets stepped on, the headquarters, it's just not that big a deal. And yeah, the old system just, you can move it around wherever you want to. They're going to follow the army commander's orders. Well, there are some minor effects to the army headquarters. For example, that's where you write your written orders from. And that's where you have to keep stepping. So it's kind of a big deal to get it moved, but it's just an obnoxious thing. Now it's on delay. Trying to think if there's anything else of importance yet. I have to resolve all this shit. I did the firing, the defensive fire, what there was of it. This doesn't get to fire because it's disordered. These guys all have their lines of sight kind of blocked. So, yeah. I wanted to express. So, if the attacker is in line formation, there are no advantages. The defender being in line gives an advantage. Here. Defending in line doesn't give any particular penalties on the stand table. It does a damage thing. So you want to deploy into line if you're going to receive, but if you're attacking, you actually want to be in column. This disturbs me because you don't want to be in march column, period. That's just horrible. But the French attack columns, yes, they tended not to deploy into line before attacking, but units that were in line, to the best of my knowledge, did not form up into a column to attack. They moved forward in a line. And the idea there being that you have better frontage if you've got a small unit, which is not represented at all here, and that, you know, you were in good shape for the attack. It lacked the advantages. So there were kind of a mix of did the assault column or whatever, did the French column mass make sense or not? And it certainly was effective. It had certain advantages to it. The density of the forces, etc., meant they were less likely to collapse. But it also meant less firepower in the front unless you had enough units there. And I just don't feel like this is getting the trade-offs of that appropriately. I think the old system may have done a better job of that. I'm not sure. And Lannes' attacks did not go at all well. Outnumbered in every case, had to make checks first. Basically all his units have been wrecked. The only exception is the one that tried to capture guns. It didn't get any. They scurried away. Yeah. The one bright spot is the V division here. We had another leader loss, and that thing is just wrecked at this point. It's probably going to make a divisional attack failure, I guess. Why didn't this check? I'm having a really hard time remembering where Cav needs to be checked. That should have checked last turn, and it did not. Okay, it's fine. Murat had a couple of blown Cav, one of which was blown this turn. Yeah. He gathered together a couple of blown Cav, and I don't know if I've been failing to check either of them. It's because there's no counter or anything, they're just flipped over. It's very hard to tell, you know. You get used to that kind of thing with So like routed counters in the great battles of the American Civil War, you just flip them over, right? But you get used to that, so you're looking for them all over the place. It's not as easy to get used to something that you have to make morale checks for all over the board in a game where most of the things like that are showing up with a pretty clear counter on them. I understand, you know, in terms of the actual components. Hey, Cav is either blown or it's not. You flip it over. The Viva la Emperor series had Cav go disordered when it was blown, which really isn't good enough. You know, but that meant that there would be specific different. It would use the standard mechanism for exposing what was, you know, regular disordered units. All had their own counters on them. That system had a bit of an issue though, which is the only time Cav were in line formation, which was one of the two sides of the counter, is when they're charging. And so that was kind of wasteful, but it had different strength values marked on them. This is a game where everything you do, you pretty much have to look up on these charts, which was really irritating in Viva la Emperor, how much I had to look up on the charts. But here, at least I can find the units easily. My eyes are not so bad that I can't read what these units are. Some of the numbers in the Viva la Emperor were just unreadable. And then the only thing that I identified was like basically a 3 or 4 digit number, and with sheets and sheets of stuff, it became kind of hard to determine what was what. But anyway, all right, we'll try sleep again. So far, so I'm starting the 3:30 turn. This little red marker here to indicate, hey, that's the wrecked division. I put that there because so far I've been rolling for command stoppage as if it's a monolithic standard core. I started having some questions last night, so I slapped that down to C. But now I read this, and it looks like when this wing exists when the play begins, set it up acting as core headquarters according to standard rules. There's nothing in it which says that the divisions would check individually. I thought there was. So let me look at the scenario rules, because maybe they say these units comprise the left wing. Yeah. I think the left wing existed from the beginning of the scenario, which is weird because maybe it doesn't in some cases. Here's the problem. There's no tracking for the left wing. That's the only real clue I guess I have that the divisions might be stopped on their own. I thought I remembered a rule that said that. So I guess I'll just make a tracking space for the left wing, and I have to figure out which things that is, so that I can keep track of. You know what doesn't work there though. So let's take a look at. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I just have to identify which pieces are in the left wing, and then it'll be X divisions out of that, because there's no tracking on these guys either. So if we take a look at Victor, he's got 2 core or 2 divisions in his core. There's no concept of a core being wrecked. It's just by the division. So that shouldn't be a problem. A place where the bolting down rules have a serious impact. I've got O'Reilly disordered here. He probably can't stand against anything. However, I'm not allowed to just move a hex and swing around or anything to try to recover from that disorder. The only way I can recover is to do yet another emergency withdrawal on him. So be it in this case, I guess. It leaves me with no good options, basically, but yeah. This time I used Cav correctly. Before launching a charge, I unlimbered some guns. Remember, this is all done during movement. Those guns weren't in opportunity range of anything. The skirmishers ignored them. And then I launched my Cav charge. Converting to square caused the artillery to fire. And I actually screwed up. The artillery got lucky. But yeah, it would have been a morale -1 either way. And then the square stood, but during the break-off, it lost another morale level. Meanwhile, the Cav was knocked down to disordered as well and blown. And now, you know, I can continue working with the things that I have up there. I don't think I have another Cav in range to do anything, so whatever. At the end of the Austrian turn, they're winning the artillery duel here somehow. They're outgunned, but because of the ranges, it's only like 2 fire points to 1. So it's not that terrible. And they're getting lucky rolls, you know. Up here, this is a risky thing to do, having unlimbered that gun, though. This disordered unit can mount an attack against them. However, if the canister doesn't, so the canister has a really good chance of breaking the attacker before he makes it. If it doesn't, though, those guns are in trouble. Maybe not that much trouble. The gun loss table isn't that dangerous. So, I don't know. Trying to decide if I want to do the French move right now. I think I can, mainly because I don't think there's much that's going to happen over here. I've kind of decided, yeah, I'll break down into that artillery duel using my massed battery to try to break this up, but it's not that potent, and wait for the sacks to start moving before I actually launch the attack. At least that's my thinking right now. I gotta make some checks and whatnot, but yeah. Turns out I lied. My prep artillery fire was unpleasant enough, didn't get a result, that I decided to push some guns forward. They got disordered being placed there. Had they been able to unlimber in firing condition, the Cav could have struck behind this, forced a square, gotten the opportunity fire, etc. Since that didn't happen, I just all-out charged everything. Which I think is actually going to work pretty well. I looked at the units. I also noticed that I had some things that were, my commands are getting screwed up because things are stacked with the wrong stuff, and this was the only way I could kind of, that I could move forward into the positions that I wanted to, which was behind this, forcing a retreat. I had to move this forward, and one of the things is the orchards and whatnot are providing me with enough cover that I can slip around and avoid the artillery arcs. It's kind of weird. It feels like it's good defensive terrain to have all these line of sight hindrances, but it really isn't, because the artillery needs the good fields of fire. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good to be the defender in the vineyards areas, or the orchards. Somebody made their camp in an orchard. I don't remember what had happened, but I was like, oh, this is a good place to stop. It's going to be shady there. Over here with Lon, I'm going to take a chance on that artillery. I've got to get lucky to get out of this alive. Next turn, I'm going to get forced into an emergency corps retreat anyway. So we'll see what happens. Right. Things did not go all that well for the French. Not as well as my imagined glory. First of all, the cannons routed those units, and they're up here disordered now. They succeeded in their morale check. I fell back a hex with these guys. These guys were in line formation, so they could rally inside the town. Great. These guys were not, so I had to keep them out of the town. They couldn't just... they were disordered. Let me think. In column 1, 2... You know what? I can be in line formation in the town. I think that's going to give me some defensive benefits. I didn't have to back up with them. They weren't adjacent to the enemy. Over here, so Monnier or whatever, I can't read. Yeah, smacked into. Wow, that M division is potent. It's all grenadiers. That's not good. Yeah, it ended up a firefight, but I was expecting to be able to brush the Austrians aside the way that I did with the right. But over here, I demolished the remains of the right, took a couple of straggler hits, that's it. Skirmishers running away. I'm able to take the hits on the real unit, and then the skirmishers can't straggle, so at least that's how I read it. And that'll put me to the 4 p.m. turn. I have to go shopping today, pretty much a requirement, so I don't know if I'm going to make it through too much, but, you know, I'm getting a little bit more used to the weird pacing of this game where there's so much to do on where wherever a counter moves in. I forgot to check these guys to unblow. That's probably not going to work. All right. Yeah. All right, Austrian side of the 4 p.m. turn. The M division did an emergency withdrawal. They got out pretty much without any casualties, but because this gun was able to suppress these, but the gun's not able to move very fast, so it can't catch up with the units that are fleeing, and those guns may be lost if I'm not careful. Now, luckily, they're in a village. That's going to cause some issues in terms of being able to take them out. I forgot to do my offensive fire against them. Oops. Does that have a modifier? Probably should. Yeah, -2. That's going to drop us to no chance. Okay. So I can't pick off the guns. They're hiding behind buildings. Makes sense. But I can go storming in after them and force them to roll on the gun loss table, and then they rout out of there. Gun loss table, though, isn't any kind of guarantee. It's infantry trying to catch the guns, not necessarily an easy job. Up here, artillery fire having effect on Lon, with the K division coming around to join the fight. I think Lon's going to have to do an emergency withdrawal himself. I don't know if I'm going to do that right away. I think not. I don't feel very well, which sucks because I really need to go shopping, but my gut is giving me troubles today. My shopping, and it fucking drained me. I took a fall going up my driveway, which didn't help at all. And I'm just achy everywhere now. Not from the fall, from pulling the cart. Okay, so I did the French turn for 4 p.m. And Victor, oops, I forgot to check the gun loss table there. I'll do that real quickly. Let's use a French one. Okay. Now, let me make sure orchards are not impassable to artillery. No, they're fine. There's nothing. 1, 2, 3. This is routed. So the gun's got away unscathed. But otherwise, Victor's reached his objective and starts setting up a defensive line here. Technically, I think I'm in no orders. I'm not sure. I think I'm within range for that. Maybe not. 1, 2, 3, 4. I may have to drop into defensive orders there. Just to keep the commands where I want them. But I'm moving artillery up to try to knock the H division out of where it is. Meanwhile, Napoleon's moved up to give Victor additional orders. He's just going to have him sweep into Marengo. And then possibly further, I don't know where. Maybe here. I don't know. You really can't. I mean, I could dispatch something to go take that if it's undefended. But if I send the army up that way, well, then Marengo becomes open. So maybe I need to just drive them from Marengo and worry about, I don't know what. You know, that's the whole problem. Lon did an emergency withdrawal, carefully trying to skirt within the walls so that the opportunity fire wouldn't have any effect. And his forces are still somewhat exposed, so they're going to undertake some more problems there. But yeah, other than that, everything kind of ground to a halt down there. And I don't know if I have more in me tonight. This wasn't a hard turn, but my body is really feeling it. Okay, so I'm starting the Austrian turn at 4:30. I noticed I had Ott marked as if there was a core attack failure already. I don't know why that's the case. I don't remember him failing, but he did this turn. So I put a marker. He's going to have his withdrawal, whatnot. That's fine. And what else started to move? Something. There's so many fucking little units. AGC over here is supporting M Division, whatever that means. With a general order, which means he's supporting them in defense. Now, this comes to a problem, the bolting down rule. Again, it really doesn't quite work, but it is especially problematic when you're talking about cav units. So this is essentially a cav unit. What it means then is that Fremont cannot lead his cav on a charge. He's going to be bolted into a location. And I believe he has to be bolted on top of a unit of his command, which means one of his units can't function as a cav unit. I much prefer the way LVE handles this with, you know, cav units are at least the way I read it, are kind of outside of all the orders rules. A cav leader should definitely be able to perform the charges. I don't know an easy way around this except to use the orders, whatever they are, to kind of define something. So if you're in a no order situation, I don't know. But if you're in a defend situation, there should be parameters to the defense for a cav unit, and you kind of express those and try to follow them as best you can. Anyway, Let me see if I have any artillery that's still got range. I think I do over here. And continue on with the turn. Not gonna matter. And I think I've violated this rule. These guys no longer are under orders. They can't fire in the offensive fire phase. Shows a problem. M division is also without orders. I don't know how you can support somebody in not having orders, but they're kind of just milling about, unable to do much as well. This is going to be really hard to remember, especially with this huge list of different orders. Unlike the core situation where you have a few units that have orders, here you just got this huge list and trying to remember what's on default defense, what's on, you know, even if I write them down, which I try to do, figuring out what's where is going to be really tough. I'm almost thinking you want a card for each unit to indicate what its orders are. Now I have some index cards I could do that with, or sticky notes or something. But it is adding a serious burden that I think is actually causing problems in the game. Like, I think I prefer the old, you don't have orders so you can defend type roles. I understand the advantage to this concept between, you know, hey, you're a reserve and aren't expecting to be attacked. But I don't know if that's really the case when you fall back out of an emergency withdrawal. And if I recall correctly, emergency withdrawal automatically throws you into no orders. If I'm wrong about that, these guys will throw themselves into defense, I guess. Because attack stoppage throws you into an emergency withdrawal. Which again, shouldn't be the case. Defense stoppage should be that. Let's see. Yeah, it does an emergency withdrawal. I think that's new. I think under the old rules that wasn't the case. And okay, emergency withdrawal says, I don't know what it says. God, I'm fucking tired. It's automatically no orders, yeah. Which means you're really, really vulnerable and don't want to stay around. Like, you will continue executing emergency withdrawals because you have no easy way to get orders. Ouch. A little weird change, because they're using the singular morale chart instead of the old, more complicated version of it. Actually, I don't think it was even a morale chart. They used morale to determine, but the straggler loss table used to be worse for, so the maximum loss you can take here is 1. It used to be worse than that for really, really poor troops. They could take 2 straggle losses off the table, maybe more even. Which means the emergency withdrawal doesn't hurt the crappy troops as much as it would elsewhere. So far, I think I've moved everything except the one place where there might be real conflict. So a massive Austrian attack over here wiped out the tiny 6th line, but it took a lot of losses from the Austrians somehow. You know, I'm not allowed to take more than half the losses, rounded up, I think, that the enemy took. So let me think about that again. So I took a 1-3 M-1, where I got a 1-4. I don't think stragglers are in effect, though. I think it's just pure losses. So I think I'm fine with that. I just took almost as bad a loss hitting a smaller, much smaller unit. Just the way it works out, I guess. I don't know. I'm never quite sure. So one thing that's not explained, they have these little insets that explain the things that aren't clear in the charts. One thing that's not well explained, doesn't matter on this one. Oh, actually those things are bloodlusted. No, they routed. They can't bloodlust it. Right, they're on the loss table, they can't. Is these modifiers in the firefight, size AA plus or in column. Now, I'm assuming both of those are the person receiving the losses. Certainly the in column, that makes sense. You wouldn't do more damage if you're a column. And column, however, is only a penalty here and here where the defender wins. If the attacker wins, column doesn't matter for either side. But the size AA is always a penalty for the person receiving it. The larger, more dense unit takes more hits, I guess. But that's already accounted for here in the opponent's formation and size, so it feels a little weird to me. It just feels shaky. I think that's what's intended. I have to say, I'm beginning to come to the conclusion, my first playthroughs of this, wasn't doing it on camera. I don't dissect games as much when I first play them, when I play them without the camera. And I think that my opinion was more, ooh, this just works. And without people catching me, maybe fudging some of the stuff with the bolted down rolls, and without realizing some of the impacts where the game doesn't quite seem to catch the cogs correctly. You know what I mean? It's like there's things like when you fall into no orders, not being able to fire and everything, what the implications of that are. Maybe not in every scenario. Maybe in some of them it's not that big a deal. But here I'm seeing, hey, these guys officially can't fire. These guys can't fire. They can fire opportunity fire. That means their artillery, if it's set up, gets shots every now and then. But their skirmishers don't fight. It just feels too extreme. Maybe taking that idea of no orders is reserve as too big a step. Or maybe the one thing that just needs to be added is allow units that do an emergency corps withdrawal to fall into a defensive formation. It's the kind of stuff that a lot of Dean's roles, these are not, they're under the gamers, but these are people refining his system to something very, very different, which I think is part of the problem, why it didn't get republished as another game in it. But, you know, the first edition of his rules often have stuff that needs to be sanded off at the edges. So the first edition of this series had skirmishers that essentially were stragglers. You had the right to mark off 1 or 2 boxes of stragglers on each unit. And it was like, well, you're kind of weakening the units. Does that really make sense? This is how they're intended to operate. It's not just take some guys out of the line, make the morale worse, and they'll be out front shooting. It kind of worked, but it was clearly not appropriate. And here, a similar case, I think, is you kind of need to add that when you fall out of a defensive, when you fall out of an emergency withdrawal, especially if you're coming out of an attack order, right? If you're failing for an attack order, there's a big difference between the emergency withdrawal, I'm fleeing because I'm getting overrun, which might well be, I will keep fleeing until I can get some kind of orders. However, the cost to get those orders is so high. Being able to get an initiative or delay reductions or whatever to hold the location that you ran away to seems way too big. So I would be okay with like something, but that something would be like not much more than a morale check type check to see, can you hold this new position or do you just keep running? Because the way emergency withdrawal is now, it would not be hard to route somebody off the map with it, basically. You just have to keep pursuing them, and they'll never be in a position where they can fight effectively, right? They don't get their skirmisher fire. They don't get anything like that. So you can just line up against them and plink them. And they're just like this disorganized mass. They're not as bad as routed units, but somewhere close to that. Like, disordered units can't fire. So it's probably a little bit better than disordered, but it's not, yeah. And it's just like, it does not seem reasonable to me. It seems to me you should be able to run, turn around, and stand your ground most of the time. I don't mind that a whole unit would collapse and keep running. That just shouldn't be the common case, which it is right now. Anyway, I did not get enough sleep, but I have a stupid interview today, so like I can't afford to sleep more. I have my alarm set at 7 a.m. and it's hard to change, so I leave it at that all the time. And that's sort of my emergency. If I could have slept out in the living room the whole night, I would have done so, and then I knew the sun would wake me up, probably just as stupidly early. In the French command phase, whatever, random event came up, a leader lost. I lost Watron, which caused a rout over here. Wrote some orders for Victor to attack Marengo, and the Sax ended up activating his orders. Victor's not ready to go yet. Yeah. That's about it. No, I have to actually execute. Not much came of it. I moved some artillery into position. Again, I guess I'm in defensive orders here. You know, the only way that I can use my artillery, that meant that I rolled on a worse table slightly for order acceptance, but it might make some sense, you know, starting an attack from some kind of engagement. Here I legitimately could be in defensive order. Starting an attack from partial contact may take longer. I don't know why. You know, I'm kind of, is that stop and start and rest and stuff like that? I don't know. But if I chose not to be unlimbering my guns and firing, I might have gotten a better result. The modification is too limited, is too small to worry about. I would rather have the gunfire. Over here, and we got plinked at by Austrian guns. I think you're not allowed to divide up fire points in this system. You had better not be able to, because under the old system, 4 guns firing at range 3 or 4 would get you a reasonable table. Here, 4 light guns out at that range gets you on the 1 table. But 1 light gun out at that range gets you at the 1 table. So you could spread your fire all over the line and hope to, you're not going to get much off of it, but you get more chances at causing a casualty, you know. I mean, it's clearly a better thing. Maybe I ought to look that thing up, because if so, the Austrians would be firing, you know, couldn't see here. Fire down there. I would have an additional shot here, I think. Nope, didn't have any guns there. Okay. Yeah, I'd have had a shot at these skirmishers, I guess. Although, again, I'm not sure. Something led me to believe that there was a penalty for firing at skirmishers. Is there? Yeah, I don't see it there. It would take less morale effects. But I'm not going to look it up. But yeah, I mean, clearly you could fire all along the line just trying to shake it up and cause extra casualties. Or concentrate your fire on one unit and get the same effect against that one hex that you would get many times over firing down a line. And I find that really, really disturbing. Yeah, here I'm not so sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm at range 6. Range 6, I would need at least 3 guns to have the effect. So I did the correct thing here, and here I only had 1 line of sight. So yeah, I'm fine. I didn't reduce my rolls. What about this gun? What is this gun doing? It's like blocked from any vision right now. Wow, that sucks. All right. That's it. Opening up the Austrian turn, no events. However, I had forgotten K had A, lost a leader and had a wrecked unit, actually. Oh. That happened relatively recently, so it's not too bad. I don't think I rolled. I had to roll a 6 or higher, and I just failed, so he's going to go through emergency withdrawal. But I don't think that I rolled below a 6, but I can't be sure. So I just don't know. But Milos gave orders to sweep down to... So these are weird orders. Sweep down to Spinetta, driving Victor from Marengo region. Probably technically a complex order, but I'm not even sure it's a valid order, right? So I've got 2 things that I'm trying to express here. I want to make it to Spinetta, but I also want to make sure Victor doesn't slip in behind me. Like, it's possible that he could clear a path to Spinetta. I could get down there without any interference. It's highly unlikely. Victor's got a big unit there right now. But I want to make sure that I've got both things covered. And I allow that kind of flexibility. I could see some people not being happy with it. But that order was distorted. Now, under this version of the rolls, that's a possible problem, because later on further turns, I have to keep making checks to see if if I discover that the order is distorted, and then can write a new order for it. I think Ott can roll for initiative on later turns without it being a problem, which probably is the easiest way out of this. But he can't roll for initiative to do what I gave him as an order. So... But at the very least, Lan is out of trouble. And Castel Ceriolo, I think, is still French. They were the last occupying it. The Austrians aren't going to be allowed to go in. Phew. Even more confusing, Milos has moved, or Ott has moved his command more or less the way I would have anyhow, forming up his forces and getting them, into command range and whatnot. It just happened to put them into a position that they're about ready to do what they were going to do. And that's just, one of those things that's going to confuse me if I half remember and don't bother to look back. That distorted order, yeah, that's just a problem. I am afraid of taking the French turn because of this D4 sitting here. There's a fair chance that I'm going to have a fairly massive set of attacks happening. I don't really need to do them though, I'm doing artillery bombardments right now, and I got some counterfire that went up here. This guy doesn't have enough guns to even fire anymore. He's too far away for his gunfire. More on a personal level, yeah, I had my interview. It stressed me out. Like, couldn't sleep last night. Went perfectly fine though. Except now I got like an 8-hour pen testing test, which probably means that's going to be what I'd mainly be doing in the job. And like with the meta, where it just feels like this huge burden to go through to try to get something that I'm not sure I even want. They haven't like said, well, you'd be getting this, or anything like that. I have my salary expectations up there and whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the offer would be. And I really kind of hate the idea of going through the effort and finding out that they're gonna offer me like 20,000 less, because honestly I think pen testing would be a step back from what I was doing at Meta, at least. Although it would take me about a week at least, maybe 2, and I've been dragging my feet saying I don't want to do that, to try to prep for algorithms and data structure type stuff, because every single candidate for any kind of like technical position they have has to go through this fairly rigorous set of exercise questions. And the algorithms one I have a shot at. I'm not sure I have a shot. They have another set that's systems, and I just don't even know if I have a shot at that. I've never designed systems, and none of this probably has anything to do with my actual work, unless I'm using, unless I'm designing AI or something from the ground up, which it's just fucking crazy, I'm just like, am I doing the right stuff here? There's very few places that do pure code review. That's the problem. Anyway, that's enough chatter, I guess. Right, so found a problem, but nothing basically happened this turn. Dissects is core of one division because one of them is detached, and I would assume I could give it orders to reattach it or to switch it, but I can't just do that automatically. Is moving, but Victor is not. Lon gathering together, he's got nothing he can do. I mean, he is just so beaten up at this point that the best I can hope for is a recovery of his command. K is probably just about as bad. Lon might go for an initiative roll and try to defend Castel Sariello again. I didn't think of doing it here. I found myself a problem though, like I said. There's a walled farm here, and I've been piling my artillery up there and exchanging duels through it and just ignoring it. I didn't realize it was there. I'm gonna continue to pretend it's not there because there's really no good answer to this situation. I would be immune to fire from it, and actually able to fire, so maybe I'll start playing it. I don't know. But the thing is, I've taken some damage already for being there, but I guess I shouldn't penalize the French anymore than they already are. Let's see. And that's going to move me to the Austrian turn. I got to decide if I have the willpower to play another play side of the turn. Because the thing is, Desax is getting close enough that well, he's attracting some fire actually, but he's getting close enough. He's actually about to start interacting with the Austrians. So I probably have at least one more turn from him, but I don't know if the Austrians are going to do anything. But yeah, on a personal side, I've been, because I throw these in all the time, as usual, you know, I have something I'm afraid of doing, right? Not the interview itself now, but the test for it. And so I've been sleeping, which is fine. I drank, I slept. I've been taking naps every day, but today I decided to get a little buzzed just as a relaxation. But I feel myself, I've been watching these videos for, of all things, like D&D comparisons between versions. I never played anything after Advanced, and of modules and stuff that have walkthroughs of them. I don't even know why. You know, it's just sort of this. Here's something I can avoid while I'm, you know, also reading a book on Amazon's, which is kind of weird too. But no, not on Amazon, on Amazon's. Anyway, I will, I guess, try to do the Austrians because I don't think there's anything, I don't think they're trying to do anything. But then the question becomes, do I play out another turn with the French? Because I got away cheap this time, but shit. I don't want to get away at all. For what's turning out with the game, it's feeling more and more like it's probably going to come to some sort of draw. I don't know if a draw is possible in this scenario, but that's the feeling I'm getting. I don't think. Well, we'll see. There is time left. There's time where maybe the Austrians will get smashed, but it just doesn't feel like we're going to see anything vaguely decisive here. And Marengo was a decisive victory for Napoleon. Montebello was a decisive victory for Lannes. So, you know, starting off on the wrong foot and then also getting demolished here. That was very painful. So we'll see. For the Austrians, had some choices. I could have rolled for initiative up here with K. Instead, I chose Milos happens to be sitting on his army headquarters. It's a good safe place to put your army commander if you don't know what you're going to do. So he threw off some orders up there. We'll see if they get accomplished before the game ends to get to Castel Ceriolo. On the other hand, Lannes could roll for initiative and get there at any point, or I could look and see if Napoleon can get there, but his road network is not very good, so it looks like the orders would take a long time to get there. It's going to take something like 3 turns to get there. This takes 2. So it's not that bad, but, and Lannes a lot more likely to accept it. But the thing is, if I choose to write the orders, I can't use initiative to try to do the same thing. I can't double up on the concept. Oh, shit, I haven't done my fire yet. I haven't done my rallies yet either. What I did do, jumping ahead, is there's a couple of places where I had straggler recovery. And the big thing is that this E division is now following its orders to get the hell out of there. Just when the French were marching in front of the guns that it had in place, they're not heading towards it. It would be safe. Unfortunately, it's got orders to fall back into the Marengo area, probably defend up here or something. Oops. It's one of the problems with order systems. You know, I like it, but as a player, you're like, oh shit, you know, now you take your orders when they're finally in range and not appearing to go towards you. Overall, though, it's probably for the best. I guess I could charge these guys, but there's not much point to that. What I've seen with Cav charges is the only real reason to do them is if you're going to be unlimbering guns right on things. The whole idea of like, there are a number of massive cavalry charges, one at Waterloo certainly, but at other points, where they actually do something against a force of infantry, even quality infantry, you know. And even with a straight-on charge, whatever. And that is just way too risky a thing to do. Even if they don't farm square, you got a pretty good chance of just getting a world of hurt laid on your cav trying to attack. So, be much more careful with them. There was, I don't know. I mean, it's a high-risk operation, so it just feels like things are weighted a little against the cavalry in this system, even if they're weighted a little too closely, too much in favor of the cavalry in VLE. Are they? Yeah, because you can almost always set yourself up for a flank attack, and the chances of the infantry forming square is low, and you can always recall without damage. You get blown, you get disordered, but in this, you get blown after you attack anyway, so yeah. But the idea of just charging some force that's marching there, unless the entire battle hinges on it, I would not risk it. Okay, so Victor got his orders underway. I haven't decided what I'm doing with it, but after some artillery softening, Murat, there's some blue up here, they're going to be able to recover. Murat launched charges against the infantry. Now, the problem is my artillery is not close enough to really take advantage of that. If I can get a charge here from Kellerman, wherever the hell he's hiding, he's back here, so he probably can. The danger, though, is avoiding the artillery range, which is here. And I'm guessing orchards are not stuff I can charge through. I don't want to charge guns directly. That kind of negates my purpose. But if I could get these guys into square, that would give me an opportunity fire, which would give me an advantage, whatever. Anyway, that first charge succeeded. I had a successful break off from it after putting these guys in square. It doesn't really help me. I did a second charge against the artillery that was back here and destroyed it, and got a follow-up charge on the cav, which got driven back, hitting it from the rear. That cav had already attempted an opportunity charge earlier against the unit that was charging the artillery, so this unit got a chance to attempt it as well. But again, we're facing the wrong way, so the cav is able to get the advantage. Similar to the musket and pike system, cav fighting tends to be this sort of whirling maelstrom. This doesn't represent it in the same way, but in as much detail, basically. But it does give you some of that picture. But now I've got to kind of figure out, hey, do I want to push Victor forward? He doesn't have to attack. You know, he's under orders to attack, but artillery softening is part of attacking, is my view of the situation. And the rules seem to support that. And so the only thing the attack really means is I could call this, the attack could get called off by core attack stoppage. Now, I got to be careful because so nothing's wrecked on Victor. just one brigade, which is fine. It's not the whole division in terms of making checks for stoppage there. But yeah, and I moved de Sax's forces up, trying to keep cover. Here I'm kind of bending my orders. My orders were to advance along the Old Tortone Road, but again, I feel like you got to be able to make some tactical decisions in the game. Shifting a little bit to take advantage of some blocking terrain so that I don't just march by the artillery. The other option would really be to engage this artillery because it's a threat to my position, and I think that also would have been a legal choice. So, you know, it's basically, well, I've got to divert from my orders. Which way do I want to do it? I don't have to start the charge right away, so, you know, in fact, I can't. I was too far away. So I moved up and through here, where I'm outside of the arcs of both the guns, or here actually, and came around the side. Now, converting into square, I chose to do that. The artillery fire ended up getting a disordered result, but there was a leader there, so a decent leader, so it comes out as shaken. Check to stand, only a 1 in 6 chance of failure. However, Kellerman's pretty good, so he's able to get break-off chance. It causes a further morale loss, though, during the break-off to the defender. However, there was an artillery opportunity fire. But here's the thing. Now, the defenders have disorganized. The artillery can't fire anymore. So I get out of there for free. Blown. And have significantly weakened the defensive position here because now the guns have been neutralized. So that's a mission accomplished as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, for Kellerman. But it, like everything in this system, it's fairly expensive in terms of the amount of different steps, the die rolls, and everything. I used to think this was streamlined. It really isn't. It really isn't. It's probably a heavier weight. Well, it's definitely a heavier weight in terms of the stuff that really bothers me, which is this sort of mental mechanical stuff. Anyway. Decided I've softened things up enough that I'm launching attacks. I definitely wanted to hit here. Chose not to bring the Consular Guard infantry in. That's still available, could hit here. The problem is, man, I'm getting close to wrecking my guard if I'm not careful. The Consular Guard Cav is one space away from wrecking. The Consular Guard infantry is not a big unit. It's an A morale, so it has, you know, the capability to make the attack and possibly win. But then it comes down to, do these guys hold or not? You know, there's no real, wow, the Guard is so much better, they're going to scare the Austrians away or anything like that in this game. As opposed to, not the original version of this, but in the earlier versions of this, but in LVE or VLE, the melee power of the Guard units is significantly more. But that's a different kind of combat system. And in a sense, the morale kind of makes that statement here, these morale checks. It's fairly easy to hold on your check to stand rolls. If you're decent units, you're not likely to lose the battle unless something is going wrong, which is why we had to degrade units. I'm in the midst of moving this unit. It could move in and attack this. This is an A morale unit, though. I'm really unlikely to budge it. In fact, I'm unlikely to budge this either. The reason I'm shaken is I just got struck by a reaction charge, which actually went really well for the Austrians by causing a morale loss. Yeah, it was a morale loss on the break-off table, which my leader doesn't help me with. I chose not to form square as I was marching because there's no reason, basically. If I look at the cav charge, the check to stand worked out that I would automatically stand whether I changed into square or not. Not if I had been hit from the rear, but... And then, yeah, there might be some effect here. I don't see it. I don't see any effect that would cause me to suffer for staying in column, for ignoring the charge, basically. And so the cav had to just break off, but they got lucky. They got the 1 in 2 chance that they would shake me. But I think I am going to stop because honestly, I brought a leader and everything hoping to bash in there, but that extra shaking, that makes me a little less comfortable marching in. A morale, it's going to have skirmisher disadvantage, but it basically has a 1 in 6 chance of losing the battle. And yeah, I don't want to face that. One thing you don't know the loss charts in this game. So I don't know, I think you know how big the unit is, but I don't know how, whether or not it's a broken brigade or a wrecked division or anything like that. Not that it's only the brigade level that matters here. So all I know is the counter that I'm facing, basically, unless I ask what size is it, which again is maybe not supposed to be known. It's hard to tell. But yeah, had one major success. They broke this hex, and that's probably where they were the strongest. Over here, I swapped units out because I was attacking with the 101 line. I could have attacked with either. The 101 line, unfortunately, is wrecked and would have been a horrible choice. It's very easy to not pay attention to what you've got there. It's always an issue with these, stuff that's written on sheets type of games. I don't remember having as much of a problem, but the thing is, this is so devoted to the close combat, right? It's not that stand and plink away. If stand and plink away, you tend to say, oh shit, well that unit was in a lot worse shape than I thought. It didn't, it's no longer able to stand in the line, and you learn that without too much damage. Here, because you're charging in, and the thing is, under CWB or under the old rules for this, a close combat was a rare thing, for me at least. And when I did it, I would check the sheets. But here, it's sort of the common, it's the means that infantry have of exerting their will. And so I look at a unit, and I'm just like, oh, look, that's an AB with B morale. That should be able to go in there. It might help more with this version to be using these kind of counters. But unlike way back, version 1 with Austerlitz and some of the older CWB games, there aren't counters that are bigger than BC. And you kind of want to be able to at least see that something's down to an A size for charging and whatnot. Anyway. We did manage to... Actually, both sides bloodlusted from this, but I lost, and this is really shitty, I lost Gardan, which, again, that's... that wrecks this division, essentially, which means now Victor's got a good chance of failing to continue his attack. And I guess that's about it. And I'm, so fatigued just doing one player turn on this little game. And this is a really, really tiny game for the series. I don't know what to say. You know, it's not giving me the kind of joy that I used to have, but it has also somehow spoiled the possible joy that I used to have from the version 1 and 2 games in the series, because it really does highlight, yeah, this is how Napoleonic combat actually works, not what's represented in the game. And if I'm going to play an abstraction, hey, why not just do the Viva la Emperor stuff, you know? If it's going to be that far from Napoleonic actual functionality, if I'm just looking kind of at the big picture, or why not throw them both out and just play the Zucker stuff? And then I get all depressed and don't want to play Napoleonics anymore. Happened on the Austrian turn. These guys are just so outnumbered by skirmishers that their morale is collapsing. I got to get them out of there. I didn't realize how bad off they were. Some recovery attempts, but mainly just taking plink fire, either smaller, a couple of artillery that were able to unlimber with range on the Austrians. The only gun I have, I got 2 here, but I only have 1 target, can't do grand batteries, so, well, pick one, you know, and they're plinks. Everything's a plink here. Orders-wise, I did find out about the distorted orders for the left wing. Milas went over to talk to Ott and see if he can get them moving again. And I don't know. That's about it. Personal life, just because it's so chaotic right now. You know, I didn't get a lot of studying done. I put in about an hour, figured out how to use the tool, which I've used before, but it's changed significantly a little bit. And I don't know. Physically, I'm a wreck from nerves because of this, in terms of like just bleeding out my ass and shit like that. So but I did contact and say, look, just give me it, I'll do what I can with it, because, you know, I mean, he knows I haven't done this shit in over a decade. So anyway, with this game, and I keep reiterating it, but, and I'm not sure what it is about it, because almost nothing happened here. But I had to paw through all these stacks to find the artillery and stuff like that. Again, if you look at the older versions or CWB, usually the artillery is all sitting on top. And usually it's not moving when it's got good fire. You know, it's things aren't getting confused. But this mishmash of commands, but here's the biggest thing. These skirmishers. I think, but I'm not sure, under versions 2 and 3, the skirmishers weren't piled, or 1 and 2, the skirmishers weren't piled up on top of units. That tends to be the best place for them in a lot of cases. Certainly if you have artillery, you've got to have your skirmishers with you. I guess you could pump the artillery on top. There's nothing that really prevents that, but I've been keeping the skirmishers on top. For whatever reason. But I think another factor is the high proportion of leaders. You know, the Austrians just have so many of these little divisions, 2 units each, 1 leader, so half the stacks have a leader on them. It's really, really cluttered. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm just finding things to gripe about or what, but it feels like it's just so much more of a chore than I remember. It being even under version 3. I know that I had misgivings about version 3, much as I was like, wow, you know, it's streamlined and it's more accurate. I think it gets the accuracy a little better. I think it fails in the streamlining, but And you know, in the rules, you don't have to use these charts, but no one's going to memorize, I assume, all the procedural values. I mean, it's as easy as memorizing a chart. The procedural values of how these work. I guess you could have little cheat sheets for all that instead, but you know, and it's not for everything. It's like for the fire combat or whatever. You got to flip through and find charts for all kind of stuff anyway. So I don't think that there's any gain there. I really didn't expect this to be this much of a pain. The French kind of slow their assault down a little bit. I made one attack with the consular guard leading and got repulsed kind of in an ugly fashion. I was hoping to overrun things, but again, good morale, even small forces, they have a pretty good chance of holding their line there. There's no real guarantee you're gonna knock them out or whatever. Here, I incorporated more and more artillery to try to win this duel. Likewise here, I've got the skirmisher advantage. I added some additional firepower in terms of artillery. I'm just going to try to duel it out in that fashion because the close combat's painful. You know, this is not just it's painful in game, you know, in terms of the effort I have to put in. It's also painful for the units that undergo it. And I don't know. I mean, the push for Marengo is beginning to look, it's open, you know. There's skirmishers which I can chase away. There's nothing keeping me from getting it. But I'm a little worried that I'm going to be able to break up the units down here. But I don't know. It just feels like, you know, I'm bypassing these guys and they're a danger. I really should have different orders than I do under this circumstance. And I don't know what to do about it. One thing that happened, I marched up on some Cav. First of all, some Cav tried to stop me from doing something. I think this attack, and they ran away. I mean, that's the whole thing. The Cav took a couple of hits. You know, these guys marching and charging into the close combat was kind of a wash here, but now I'm disordered and I'm going to have to fall back, and that's not pleasant. But en route there, I was so worried about it, I launched a Cav attack, and that caused like 2 hits to the Cav unit. Which scared me over here, so like instead of trying to defend with the Cav, I just ran away. Because honestly, charging formed infantry it feels almost as bad as it does in the American Civil War in this game. I mean, it's, again, it may be too strong. I don't remember how it was in version 2.0. But it feels too weak to me in this. It feels like the odds are in favor of the infantry, and the only reason you'd use Cav is to force infantry into square in the hopes of hitting it with artillery. And the infantry, if it's quality stuff, can probably just shrug and say, yeah, you know, I'll take my 1 in 6 chance that you beat me. Because otherwise you're the one suffering. You know? Even if it's just withdrawing the Cav, you're still blown and flung back. The Cav just seems really ineffectual comparatively. I don't know. All right. Yeah. Austrians in a bad position. I just played their 630 turnout, wrote some more orders for Ott, basically the same orders as before. I figure his force is the only one that can kind of drive the French away from Marengo. and if I get lucky down to Spinetta. But it and K Division here both got D5s. So again, you know, they may not be moving this. On an unlucky series of rolls, we wouldn't see either one. Well, we wouldn't see one of them moving. Both have relatively near objectives, so if they do move, they'll probably cause some kind of issue. K might be able to just take Castle Siri, although assuming Lon doesn't get there first, and whatever. And then here, fairly massive fight. The Austrians feel kind of handcuffed. So I'm sitting here in front of superior firepower, and the same was going on here. Yet withdrawal doesn't. So withdrawal here isn't really an option because I'm right in front of Marengo. I'm trying to defend my point space there. I'm trying to delay the French enough that Ott can smash into them and cause some difficulties. Well, the unit that was here got dissolved. And, well, now I got a couple of skirmishers there that are disordered. And that's just going to get brushed aside, but they can retreat. Which actually costs the French movement to deal with. So, it'd probably be better off trying to use a cav unit to scare them away, because that doesn't cost me anything. These guys, I don't know what, I don't have a good answer. So if I tried to withdraw, I would give the French multiple shots at me. Shots on opportunity fire against both units from the artillery. Now, if I did it right from here, there's only skirmishers in this hex, so the artillery would be screened. But this guy is going to get shot leaving. And then a second shot, the first shot's going to be as bad as the shot I stand and take at the end of my turn, which I did. And it caused a casualty to the grenadiers, and I'm kind of like, well, I can't afford to stand here. But it's too late now. And then the second shot would be at a larger range, but it would soften them up further and you know, allow this couple divisions to push harder. And I'm left with no good options. But by standing here, I've left the cav in place, which might be able to generate an additional shot or bust me up in a horrible, horrible way with a rear attack against my line. So, yeah, again, no good options. I am signed up to do my pen testing stuff, so I hope I can actually do some of it. Delayed it enough. I mean, I'm sleeping like 14, 15, 16 hours because I'm so fucking stressed, and it's my escape route, and that's not good. You know, once I get started, maybe things will feel okay. All right, on the French side of things, I rolled a random event, one of the ones standard from the book, which is kind of a weird, sort of maybe unbalancing one, especially if cav are more potent than they are, which is the cav recovery one. Unfortunately for me, all of my cav is assigned to units down here. Well, except for the Consular Guard. I don't know where that is. That's back here. So that actually could, because it can operate without orders, take advantage of it. All the other cav I have is assigned to orders that would preclude them from being able to take advantage of straggler recovery. Why this is a potentially breaking thing is it basically allows you to recover, if I'm reading it right. It allows you to recover stragglers. Now, cav don't get stragglers, so therefore it would be of no use if you read the rules as they're written. But the meaning appears to be that Just making sure that's one of Lon's units, because otherwise I won't be able to roll for it. The meaning appears to be that they can recover actual losses that way. And, you know, there's no way to do that normally. But, yeah, you know, if your army is moving when you happen to get this lucky roll, if it's under any kind of offensive orders, basically, you're screwed. Now I got to figure out what to do with the French. I'm in the midst of my test, but needed breaks. I need lots of breaks. I'm gonna fucking fail this thing. I'm having a fun time, but it's just like I should not have undertaken it. I knew. I'm just not good at this kind of stuff. It's not that, you know, I wouldn't be able to do it as a job. It's that I'm not good at taking a long test like this. I did one once before, which I put the appropriate effort into. The Austrians paid their price for leaving those grenadiers here. Formed square. Turns out that was a mistake. The artillery hit it enough to cause enough problems. The unit was wrecked, which meant that I was paying as big a price as being attacked in the rear would have been for my to stand, plus additional morale costs. And then Murat's cav hit it. Now, Murat paid a heavy price. He took 2 hits for going in there. That was unlikely. A successful cav attack is potentially fairly safe, but in this, it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot. But the fact that I get to stick around for 3 extra swings and butcher it, it's knocked down to, there's only a reduced skirmisher that's routed away. It meant that I didn't get to plow into this, but that's probably for the best. I don't think I could have handled another hit there. But yeah, I mean, we're weakening the position here. Now if I can, which I can't, hand all those guns to change facing so that they have this in arc. There's some horsey cav in there, and that can move right up here and on limber. There's not much can be done about it there. The skirmishers can't fire back, whatever. But yeah, it's, I've weakened this position tremendously and destroyed a grenadier unit in basically one little attack. You know, which I'm not saying. So, cav attacks should be risky. They have that right. They should be high impact. They have that right. It's just they feel a little bit too risky on the cav. But here, with the support of the artillery hitting it first, the Austrians were in a no good options position. Here I pulled away. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to do. The answer is probably not. Well, no, I can activate these. They haven't moved yet. So there's a little bit around the edges that I can do, but I really don't want to start fighting Ott. I can chase these guys away, but it doesn't feel like a necessary situation, and there's some artillery here, so I can't kind of do anything over there without attracting fire that is going to hurt. That's pretty much the 6:30 turn. Now, where cav is nerfed, artillery is as well, because when you're facing line formations, most of what you get, especially without the masked battery, is you're firing on one of these little charts here. Now, you might get lucky and get a hit, but the morale effects, they don't impact, because an unwrecked A or B morale unit and C units with a 1 rated or better commander get to reduce their morale loss by 1, which means you've got to get some pretty hefty fire to start getting into the morale 2. which means, at least 3 or 4 light guns at close range. And when you're starting to get out to, heavy range, without a masked battery, you're not getting it. And the guns in this game, the biggest ones are like 4. So, yeah, it's pretty hard. Which means you can't really soften up the enemy line's morale with firepower, which is kind of what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, unless you get the guns right up under the enemy's nose, which, it's possible on an assault, but it's not really what you see here. You're not going to soften the enemy line the way that I think you should be able to. Now, under the old system, because everything wasn't baked into a single fire chart that just like did your morale, you always had kind of a chance, right? You'd get like a morale check against an enemy unit. There were almost no conditions other than bloodlust, where the enemy is pretty much impervious to a morale check making them a weaker unit, shaking them up a little bit. But it just does not happen here. You might be able to get a couple of lucky kills on 1 in 6 shots, but that's really, again, until you hit the 3 table, that's the best you've got. And that's a hard table to get to at any kind of range. So you're not going to see, massive artillery duels and stuff showing up under this system. And they did happen, Now, again, mass batteries can do a little bit better, but you're trading time away. And I just don't know. My expectation here is that the French are going to take Marengo unless Ott comes smashing in, because it's mine for the taking at any point I want it, basically. And getting myself a little out of position at this point in the day in order to take it doesn't really make sense. There's not enough time for me to capitalize on having taken it to go like run up and take this or something. And there's too much time so that I might be weakening myself against a possible odd attack that I could otherwise throw back and then still take Marengo. Or maybe these guys come up and take Marengo. Well, who knows? I didn't mention. So those Consular Guard Cav, well, they did the miraculous and rolled a 6, and now they're absolutely healthy. They had 2 hits against them, which, on a small unit is pretty big. They were 1 hit away from being wrecked. Now they're healthy as hell, and I can use them again. And lose them. Because, Cav can have a really hard time in this game. All right. And again, so little happened for a fair amount of effort, pawing through all the stacks, looking at so much information to try to ascertain, what I can do. I'm trying to imagine what this is going to be like in Austerlitz, and I'm terrified of it. Playing Austerlitz under the version 1 or 2 rules, they're essentially the same. It was a big battle, but it was like a slightly more complicated, big CWB battle. Oh, another thing, I completely forgot to have this guy do a countercharge. Again, that's on me. I have this really hard time remembering the everything. Now, had I done that, there would have been a second cav that could have gone in and done the same shit. So maybe it's not that big a deal, but yeah, that was definitely an error. It's a problem I just have with these Napoleonic games is in order to have them work right in the amount of detail that I want from the game, it requires a level of interactivity proactive awareness that I just don't fucking have. Between horrible interview tests and I just don't know if these are worth it, and then dancing, and finally now it's actually feeling like summer. It's been harder to come up here. I haven't been playing for the past few days. Now it's on Sunday. Usually the weekends I end up not getting a lot of gaming done anyway, but I figure I gotta get some in. Anyway, 7 p.m. turn, and all of Austria's plans are coming true. Just got his orders to come smashing down. K's replacement here has his orders to take Castel Cereal, which these two things probably should swing the game into Austria's favor. It's been kind of a, gosh, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, because it's all kind of hinging. Hey, Marengo's going to fall probably. Kind of hinges on these couple of points here, but now that's all thrown in doubt. Marengo, we'll see what happens due to this. It's Austrians trying to smash their way through the French, which is a different situation. They're not anywhere near as potent. They can't just park and firepower their way through it. What their artillery is, I think. I'm not sure. We'll see. They do have a significant amount of artillery, but they don't have the skirmisher firepower to back it up. We come to the slow nature of the combat system with the integration of all the different arms. Artillery managed to disorganize a big stack of units with the Consular Guard on top. That led me to make a cav charge against that unit. Because it was already disorganized, it wasn't able to form square. So it's facing certain penalties here. Notably that it was disorganized, the -2, I think that's it. I rolled a 1, so even that A morale wasn't enough. Come in and just butcher the unit. The Consular Guard is gone. The 96th line is wrecked and in pretty bad shape now. When cav hits with all gears, it does a hell of a lot of damage. By the way, the heat makes it very, very difficult to play up here. It's supposed to be like 90 degrees. My house stays pretty cool just because of the trees and the hill, except in the morning when a lot of sun is coming in through those big windows. But it stays reasonably cool. But I'm up here in the attic basically, and it's probably right around that 90-degree mark. I'm dripping a little bit, but one way or another, the high temperatures have been causing my internet to go out the last couple days. Just I don't know why. I haven't investigated it fully. It could be some patchwork I did on the wiring outside, where I've got some electrical tape that is loose. I tried jamming that in a little bit harder. That didn't fix it. The last time it happened, I tried a lot of things, and I don't know if that was the thing that fixed it, or if just, the heat is causing problems with my main provider. I do have other jacks, but anyway, the fact that my internet went out is a big part of why I'm up here. Otherwise, I'd just be watching Jay Leno's Garage for whatever reason, which is my new addiction that I'm wasting tons of time on. For no great reason except, yeah, I do love those old cars. But anyway, we're plodding our way through a player turn. It just takes so fucking long to do all the things. As though I'm really kind of shying away from engagement. Oh, I should have a second shot with that. I had an opportunity fire that I did not notice. French artillery did almost nothing, which is part of my grump. And there I get a hit. I'll record that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, we're being very, very cautious with our advance because the French are just going to tear us apart. You know, so like here, not moving this gun forward, it could, but it would generate opportunity fire. Here, I thought I wasn't generating, which was why I went there. But I'm just not generating it until I slipped into there. I kind of curved around the edges. You know, every movement, every formation change, everything causes a possibility of the fire to be generated. Yeah, you only get shot at once during the movement of any one particular unit, but you know, an overall advance against a line with artillery means that all your stacks are going to get the shit blown out of them. At least that's the feeling I get. It's not the truth of the matter, although as you get closer, the Grand Battery here is going to do a lot of damage. Here, you know, I could have pulled out. I didn't, which meant I suffered fire, but I only suffered one round of fire instead of a couple rounds of fire if I backed up. When I route, that's not going to generate opportunity fire, so that's cool, unless I get things wrong. The command situation here is just causing problems. I mean, like, again, I've brought this up with, I'm like fudging with it because the bolted down just does not work, especially with a cav heavy combat system, you know? I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, well, you know, part of my line can advance and attack, but part of it can't. When you're on defensive or no orders, standard combat cannot be performed, is basically what it comes to. And then they also have, which may fit in with this, but it's new to me, I don't think this was in existence in the earlier versions, which is the no defensive fire unless you've got orders. Defensive orders count, but you know, the no order status does not. And again, wow, you know, in and of itself, that might be workable. Even if you have gripes about, well, what, I just stand here and I'm not shooting? What the hell is going on? Only opportunity fire, which the enemy lines up and then starts firing into me, and I can't do anything back until I achieve some sort of orders or do an emergency withdrawal, at which point I'm further away, but still shot all to shit. But yeah, the thing that makes it particularly bad here is all the different commands that exist in this scenario. I had that same kind of problem with the 3 battles of Bull Run, where the 2 historical battles, the first one, there's no corps command on either side. The second one, I think the Confederates still don't have a corps command. And you just have all these divisional commanders who, it's just fucking obnoxious to deal with. The system is not designed for that. I understand why they're putting it there. It actually shows the difficulties and why the core structures, you know, predominated, and why these battles were kind of a mess without them. But it's just not fun to play. Anyway, I'll take a break here, obviously, and I'll take a look, see if I can get my internet working or if it's working already. But yeah, I'll test to see if it's my own patch that's the problem. I keep smelling what smells like dead things. I wonder if something died in my roof or something. As I can tell, the internet issues were not anything to do with me. No, just local area problems. Anyway, I've gotten quite a far ways into the 7 p.m. French turn. A couple of cav charges, which were countercharged by Austrian cav from the E division. And again, if I worked with the bolted down rule as written, this would not have gone as well for the Austrians, but they were able to defeat them. However, the French were able to slip some infantry in from the flank. It's going to get shot by the artillery at point blank range, but maybe I'll take the artillery and push the rest of Victor's units here forward. Lon still just got his orders. He's in a D5. Nobody else reverted. Some artillery fire to try to soften up the Austrians, but now comes the return fire. I just wanted to catch in because there's so much complexity in any given player turn. Yeah. Well, in any player turn where stuff is happening. Where stuff's not happening, the game's as mellow as it used to be. In the old system, you would not have wanted to charge artillery like that. But in this one, it's not that terrible. It wasn't that big a gun. I came in from the flank, which reduced each shot by 1, so they were on the 2 table. That's 2 dice still. It was possible to take some casualties. All I took was morale -1 checks, though, or effects, which, because I had a leader and or because it's an A morale unit, I'm fine. Yeah. I think, let me make sure that unit's not wrecked. It is not. So, yeah. So I've pushed forward, I've shoved the Austrians out of the way, and there's basically nothing in my way up here, except for this cav. These disordered units, though, will be rallying a little bit. I wasn't able to get close enough to them to engage. I could have moved to here. That would have caused some issues, but then I'd face a possible cav charge, and I don't know about that. But I chased away a lot of units that were in the front that were screening their cav charge, and I don't know. I honestly don't know, should I have pushed it harder. I just want to take Marengo, and putting this force there is enough for me to be able to slide in at any point I like. Although right now I've got a firepower advantage on them. I've got like 6 firepower going in against 1, which puts me on the 5 table. -2 for the walls puts me on the 3. There's a chance that, well, I'm not going to cause casualties that way. But I could degrade its morale and get in there cheaper. And I'm always into the cheapest possible solution. I'm hoping I finish this before my reserve memory dies. I know it's not very long, and this video has been going for a long time, but I also know that I'm close to the end. I also have my solution for the heat. I'm planning on moving downstairs when this is over, but I can play something else that's not on video while I'm fiddling around with this stuff, and thereby not feel like I'm totally wasting time. It's just hard for me to play more than a turn of this at a time, a player turn when it comes down to it. I started the Austrian 7:30 turn, made my checks, and this is ridiculous. The K unit here has decided to flee. So, you know, if attack stoppage was just your order stopped and you parked, I could live with that. But I can't accept I wasn't suffering any firepower or anything, and now I've got to run away and take core attack stoppage, the emergency withdrawal check. I don't buy it. It just doesn't make sense. Once I've gotten moving, there's nothing that threatened this unit and would get in the way of its momentum going forward, as it were. Especially since I've nearly captured the area. So I'm going to disregard it. Get rid of this. And just let them complete their order. I think I did the same thing for the French earlier. I don't accept if you have not undergone any friction whatsoever, that you would throw your orders out. The old rules did not work that way. The old rules were you didn't have to start checking until you've come under fire under those orders. That might be hard to remember, especially with all these commands, but it just makes more sense to me, and this is an unreasonable situation as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I guess I'll start the Austrian side of the turn, and Ott barely made his check. He's at least undergone fire, so I would have accepted if he was flung back. Ready to use Ott with a really major push here. I'm facing too much artillery, and in fact I unlimbered a gun here. Opportunity fire, didn't do anything. Then the normal fire, blasted it, it's routed back there. Lost a commander, that's a wrecked division on Ott, so he may just be fizzling out. But on the other hand, this stuff's in position now, and I don't think Lon can get in there. This is probably going to come out pretty close to a draw. Like I said, the French can push into here anytime they want, unless the Austrians do something. But that anytime they want, oh, I forgot to roll to see if this guy recovers a strength point. Oh, he probably does. Continuing on the French side of the turn, Lon got his orders, moved forward, took a little bit of artillery fire. His units are broken, so they are shaken by that. Here, we're degrading these guys. We'll force them back. If we have to charge, we'll charge, but we'd rather just scare them away, I think. The artillery keeping up its job, breaking things up in terms of Ott's units, knocked a set of guns back again. Basically just doing things at a very, very low level, because I don't think that there's anything major that's going to change by launching a massive attack. I think both sides kind of understand that they're probably better off trying to reduce the losses at this point, more than anything else. Austrian 8 p.m. turn, the left wing collapsed and fell back, and there's basically no reason for the French not to advance, assuming they don't get a core attack failure. If they do, then this delay was a mistake, but it's the one thing I hadn't really been taking into account. Hey, I had to grab Marengo before I fail one of those. But the truth is, if I did, the Austrians could probably take it. So if I'm going to get a core attack failure, the Austrians will probably be able to retake it after that failure, even if I do take Marengo. Although my orders are to capture Marengo with at least one unit, with both the units. So if both of them failed, if they succeeded in taking it, they could fall into a default defensive order, and then they wouldn't have to fall back. So, but yeah, it really just comes down to those die rolls, because otherwise the French are going to be able to grab the city. That's just skirmishers there. A little bit of annoyance here, stuff that is in a weird sort of state where some of this can't follow its orders, like H Division's orders are, I don't know what. It looks like defending the old Tortoise Crossroads, but I think I must have failed at that. So I think I'm kind of in a no order state there. I don't know. Whatever it is, it just feels so wrong to put it into a state where it cannot fire in the defensive fire phase. But it would get opportunity fire coming forward. So if I do press there, that's problematic. And I forgot to roll for at least one blown cav. There might be another one back here. I don't know. Tends to be some kicking around in all sorts of places. A couple of these were routed units that did manage to rally. Oh, here's the other thing. I routed Lon's Watrin division stack. That doesn't force it to end, but it's in pretty bad shape. It's a one division core with that division wrecked. So however you want to look at that, it doesn't have a very good chance, but and it has no chance of taking the town. It's just a matter of whether or not my orders will fail. I could do a core attack stoppage. I could do an emergency withdrawal just to pull out of there, because if they did make the attack, they're pretty much doomed. But yeah, I think we're winding down here, just in terms of there not being anything I can do. I don't know. The turn, the French are going to take Marengo, and after some artillery fire, just a little bit here, weakening the Bellegarde infantry that was sitting there, Murat launched a charge, destroyed the rest of that infantry, hit the cav behind it. They countercharged once they could see him, but beat them up too pretty badly. But Murat lost his life. Well, he was wounded in the course of the cav charge. But now there's basically nothing in my way for taking Marengo. And I could probably call it here, but I don't tend to do that. The Austrians chose to stick their skirmishers up there to fight in the village. Kind of a last-ditch hope to catch, if they break the infantry or whatever in both attacks, basically. Yeah, in 2 out of 3, because, but anyway, that would be a way to prevent the capture of Marengo. But, those skirmishers don't really stand a chance, and they were wiped out. They did do quite a bit of straggler losses. I think I may have actually done a real casualty against something as well. But, and then over here, this guy got plinked. So now we're ready for the last couple turns, but I don't know. I keep pinging between this and 18 Magyar, which is a very different 18XX. I can't seem to sleep reasonable hours, which is fucking with my capability to deal with interviewing and whatnot. But it's fucking hot, and I'm like, let me just sleep during the day. I don't know. Okay, looking at the situation on the board, I've concluded the battle is actually over. Let me explain why. I mean, there's not enough time for Alon to turn around and come back, assuming he can keep his orders up while he's routed and going back, and I don't just whatever. There might be time for the French to take up some orders and pursue or something. It's late in the day. Let's keep thinking. This turn, beyond that, there might be some chance for some engagement to occur. Nothing back here has orders to move forward. And Milos is here with his army headquarters. That's the only thing that's there. It's meaningless. It could be stepped on and it'll just run away with no effect. This is part of H Division, which got driven back to here. I gotta make my way, because there's artillery out this way. The infantry could just cross normally, but the artillery is gonna have to make its way back. This AGC is going to emergency withdraw. There's nothing, because they're all that's left holding the line. So I'll make a straggle check for them at the best. But otherwise, I think it's time to add up the score and see what we got. By the way, there wouldn't be any stragglers. This is a cav unit. And there's nothing that can fire reaction fire at any of those units. The artillery's back here. There's guns here, but they're too far away. Yeah, there's basically nothing. So the Austrians are able to disengage cleanly, whatever. Now, for victory conditions, one, we have the terrain things, which the French clearly own the most of. The other side of it is wrecked formations. This is at the divisional level. It includes straggler losses. And I've got the Austrians at 1, 2, 3 units wrecked, and that's it. The French, however, have only lost 1, which is the Watrin unit, which basically entered this scenario fucked, right? Because of Montebello. I mean, these units were basically 1 point from being wrecked anyway. They were in no condition to fight. And we add those up. The terrain, the total total Austrian terrain is Tete Pont and Cerillo there, which adds up to only 7, whereas the French have everything else on the board. I think that's 11. I could quickly look through here. I wish they told me the total. 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, that adds up. And so we have a total differential of 14 to 8 is 6 points in the French favor, which is a French minor victory. Honestly, like looking at the battle and how it played out, all right, sure, the French got a minor victory. They held the terrain, you know. I buy that. They didn't get hammered that badly, but it really didn't feel like they won. It feels more like a draw. But I think a minor, you know, the Austrians probably are claiming the French got a draw. The French are saying we held the terrain, we won, whatever. It's pretty much what one would expect. For the play of the game, I screwed up with no question in terms of trying to hold this position. Those guys, I should have pulled back immediately and defended behind the river line right from the beginning. They were a weakness. They're a weakness in the initial setup. And the point being, if the Austrians can hit them hard enough, fast enough, as opposed to skirmishing with them a little bit and forcing them back, you can rack up some real losses and force Victor to leave early. How much that really matters? The French command structure is so superior to the Austrian one that it is really, really hard for the Austrians to do a damn thing on this battlefield. And that's as designed. I mean, that's how this scenario is built. It makes the scenario a pain in the ass to play. Tracking all these different Austrian commands is just a mess. And you know, trying to get everything to line up when you try to make guesses where this division should go, that division, that's always a problematic thing anyway at the corps level, but it gets much, much harder when you're working division by division to remember how many, you know, when you have so many. But yeah, I feel like this played out pretty much as expected and as it would have under the old rules in terms of like the big picture. Right? The one difference being this would have probably been more of a skirmish under the old rules. I managed to launch a heavier body blow against that unit because these rules make you more likely to want to do that. In terms of the rule sets themselves, you know, and I'm going to keep going with this, but man, it feels so much heavier playing with this rule set. So many harder decisions. Each little sector of the battlefield to play it out takes so much more effort because the game emphasizes that close combat, which is sort of an abstraction. It doesn't guarantee that, you know, you're charging with bayonets fixed, but it does. It puts you on the table where maybe that happened and maybe it didn't, right? The variability of the cav charges, just all the systems in the game are so much heavier, and you either have to be looking at the chart or looking at a procedural way that the chart is generated, either of which you're not going to just have in your head. You have to look at a lot of charts under the old system, but there was sort of a similarity between them all, whereas these charts are conglomerates of multiple charts from the old system. So, you know, melee in the old system, you'd do fire combat, morale check, and then final push. It was the same stuff as you're doing in the fire combat phase, just with higher losses, and nowhere near as high as they happened here. This has much more dramatic effects. Both the infantry close combat is really, really powerful, and the only way the infantry gets to engage, but it has impressive effects, and the cav charges feel, and maybe I'm wrong about this because I don't remember the old system all that well, but they feel more dramatic here, more likely to fail utterly and the cav gets shot up pretty bad, or doesn't, it breaks away early or whatever, or to really succeed and the cav just sticks in that hex and butchers people. But again, I don't remember how the old system worked. Maybe I was missing something like you can stick around and charge 3 more times without taking any losses, which feels I mean, that's how cav wins in this, right? They win the first round of it. Okay, that wasn't really worth it. Because you're losing cav in exchange for whatever you're butchering. But the next 3 rounds just wipe the unit out, and that's pretty impressive. Let me take a peek at that before I close this up to see if the old version, I know I did a comparison, but I don't remember the old version having that stand around and butcher units. Significantly different under the old version. You had follow-up charges, but the hex that you hit, those units ran away. If you had a follow-up charge coming, those units ran away and then you could hit another hex. And that was a potent function, but nowhere near what it is here, where if you stay in the same hex, you take no more damage and you get to keep butchering the units before they run away. You truly decimate units. And again, I think that's an accuracy improvement. I really do. I think that's the cav is becoming a really more potent functionality. And honestly, when I griped about the cav, hey, so many times I attack and the cav comes off worse than the infantry, and they didn't really try to break the charge, but they took some fire or whatever. Again, I'm not sure that that's inaccurate given the odds at stake when you do win a battle. Like, a cav victory is so dramatic that, this is beginning to feel. I remember an old minis game that it was a fairly simplified Napoleonic system, but it handled the cav in a very similar sort of way. The cav came forward, a square would be formed. You'd roll a die, and it was much more simplified than this, but you'd roll a die and the cav either bounced off the square and basically nothing happened, stuck around and tried to butcher it, which would turn into a complete crapshoot, or the square didn't form and they really got to butcher it. And I feel like that kind of mechanism is in here. It's just that maybe there's a little bit too little, like maybe the cav is paying a price a little bit too much of the time. And then there's this weirdness of like the artillery being able to fire only if the cav doesn't come close enough, which is really fucked up, but okay. But charging guns seems like a dumb idea anyway. So that's the end of Marengo. I'm going to take a little break before I move on. The next one is the big one, the Austerlitz scenario. I think that's the largest of the series, and it was the first. It's a good battle. I really enjoyed it under the original rules, which are closer to the Viva la Empire rules, right? And likewise, a lot more abstracted and a lot more giving you wrong ideas about how Napoleonic warfare actually works. But you get the big picture in both of those systems just as well, basically. You just don't get, and this is the weird thing. Both of them give you details that are not correct. And this one gives you the details correctly, but boy, do you pay a price for it. Anyway, did I enjoy this? You know, I hate games where I really don't like this series where somebody has to play without the without core level command. It adds such a headache in the CWB series where those games come, and obviously here. And then add to that the burden, even in Montebello, that I was feeling, which is a tiny, tiny scenario of this new 3.0 system. Something in my head says it's streamlined. Back after, I was posting on BGG or whatever, maybe a year or two after playing the 3.0 for the first time. And my impression was, oh, it's streamlined. I'm not standing by that anymore. It's not streamlined. It is much, much more cumbersome, especially in terms of juggling numbers and keeping balance of dice and whatnot. But I'm beginning to get used to it, which is to say I'm beginning to figure out, what it means when I roll a blue and a white die on the charge table or whatever, what my little shortcuts are. The nice thing about the old, CWB upward system is that they told you, here's how to streamline the system. And, you roll 5 dice at once, you do this, you do this, you do this. And it was always this singular pattern, except that singular pattern got dissected a little bit when you did the close combats, and so that 5 dice procedure didn't really work there, but you were doing the same steps in the same order, in almost the same order. But here, it's always more about looking up all the modifiers because there's so many. It's not like a simple, oh yeah, I'm behind the entrenchments, that gives me a -2, or whatever. And the same thing with all the morale-based stuff. It all uses different charts instead of just make a morale check. A morale check meant one thing under the old system. Here it's embedded into charts in other ways. You don't actually lose morale under, you don't make checks against individual units to lose morale. The morale checks are all the recovery type stuff. So I don't know. But anyway, I'll clean this up, and the next thing is going to be a choo-choos game. I'm in the middle of it right now. Well, it's going to be an XX game, sort of, kind of. It's a weird one. And yeah.